All right, let's run straight to the markets now. We have Anita there to tell us what's playing out for the local bonds and most of the global markets that we track right here. Good to have you, Anita.
Happy midweek,
Happy midweek, Anita. I'm not seeing that Santa, what we expect.
Laddie, it is still
I'm
early.
waiting patiently.
It's still early.
It's too
Santa, the stock market Santa.
Right.
I don't know about the other Santa that most of us always look forward to. The one that you call Father Christmas, but the Santa that we call.
When is Father Christmas coming?
Yes,
I miss
it's still a bit
Christmas.
too early. Times have changed, so maybe it's taking its time. But so far, month to date, the market is still green, at a plus 0.2%. And then year to date, it's still also green, 30.66%.
Right.
But a little bit lower than the inflation rate, which you were talking about earlier today.
But I'm still waiting for that Christmas feeling, I'm waiting patiently.
Well, you know what happens to those who wait patiently, you definitely will get, the better part of your expectation.
All right.
And we hope it's not going to get dashed. Okay. All right. Okay, so all you investors in the domestic market as well as the global investors, because we have both local and foreign investors right here, and then also the domestic ones here also trading in some parts of the global market. So this is how the market on the Nigerian stock exchange is trading at intraday. We saw that number making a slight pullback, no thanks to Ardell's share price having effect. But it was just a tad, 0.03% in the red for the close of Tuesday's trading session. But as at intraday, the last number that we tracked, the number is back above 98,123.44. What a very interesting number that you see there, 0.43% gain in the green at intraday, while the Johannesburg Stock Exchange also in the green, 0.68% at intraday market numbers. So these the two giants, the two major bourses on the African continent, still doing pretty well at intraday. And let's see how the other two markets on the continent are trading, except for the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which closed in the red, 0.59% on Tuesday. The EGX 30 for Egypt was almost 1%, the last track that we had there, and closing in on the 31,000 index level for that market around the African continent. So that's it, a nutshell for most of the markets. It's pretty a green picture. And still talking about South Africa, we saw that the market numbers didn't really respond to that contraction that we saw was reported yesterday, 0.3%, which was no thanks for. It was a weaker growth for that for the South African economy, no thanks to the drought in the region, and that's also caused a big drop in the agricultural production for that country. But so far, analysts are saying that they expect that the country's growth will return to a modest performance in the last quarter of this year, and at the same time, they're expecting that it will strengthen further and broaden throughout 2025. So that's the expectation for South Africa's economy. And now let's talk deeper about our own economy. And this time, the debt market is where we're looking at. Well, last time we were talking about the Euro bond, which was oversubscribed. First of all, it was expecting about 1.7, but this oversubscription came in at about 9 billion, and then government was able to allocate $2.2 billion. But this time, let's talk about the sovereign Sukuk, what you call the Islamic bond, and we'll have more. We'll do more about the investor education into this market for those who are not too familiar with that market. And to give us more insight on that, let's bring in Akpenwe Oputu, chief dealer with Lotus Bank, to give us details about this. Thank you for joining us, Akpenwe.
Thank you for having us on the program today.
Okay, so I have lots of questions for you, but I think let me start from the middle. Well, you see, the last time that we had a sovereign Sukuk was sometime in 2023, where the DMO issued about a $350 billion, 350 billion naira 10-year Hara Sukuk. So, and that was also oversubscribed. But can you give us details about if there's any possible Sukuk issuance upcoming?
Okay, so we usually have the DMO advice source of if there were going to be any Sukuk in 2024, but Up until now, we haven't got any information as to the Jara Sukuk when it's going to be issued. But what we know is that there's the DMO is going to come up with an FCY Sukuk, so we expect that to happen as soon as possible. Like you mentioned earlier, they already issued the Eurobond, and we could see the oversubscription on the Eurobond, a total of about $9 billion where it was unsubscribed to for an offer of about 2.2. So we expect that will play into our Sukuk market sometime this year when the FCY Sukuk is actually issued.
Okay, quite interesting. Okay, so now, what are we keep talking Sukuk, and then the proceeds are always used for infrastructure development. Some are so visible, I'm sure some people have been able to cite that. But can you tell us more about the potential economic benefit of this Sukuk for Nigeria?
Okay, so the Sukuk is actually an Islamic instrument. For the government to issue a Sukuk, there has to be an underlying asset for which this capital is being raised, for which the funds are actually being raised. So if there's a project that the government is looking to embark on, a road project or a construction, whatsoever infrastructure project the government is looking to do, that is when they come into the market to raise this Sukuk. Like you see, if you live in Lagos and you go through the CMS route, you can actually see one of the Sukuk 4 issuance, the road project that it was used for. So for now, I know the administration has the infrastructure bond, which they are currently using for these capital projects, and probably the reason why there's been a delay on the Sukuk issuance. But we see that coming because there's some investor appetite for the Sukuk. So it's not just for Islamic faithful, it cuts across different types of investors. So people are actually looking now for it because of the way the Islamic Sukuk bond works. It actually covers those transactions that are Sharia compliant, and I think a lot of people are on the lookout for this issuance.
Okay, so if there's going to be any issuance, how is that going to impact the Nigerian debt market?
So it's going to form part of the government borrowing. So last year, like you mentioned, about 350 billion of that was issued. We expect to see somewhat that same volume in the market. So if you add that into the debt they're already looking to do, we should see an increase in the government's borrowing and spending. A lot of this administration is what they're looking at is doing a lot of infrastructure projects. And I think raising this Sukuk bond will be very good. You can actually see the underlying assets for which these funds are being raised. It's very different from your regular bonds that are used to complement the country's budget. So people are actually looking out for this. We have calls, we've had engagements with the DMO, we have engagements with the central bank on this. So we expect that as soon as possible, we'll see this instrument roll out in the market.
Okay, so finally, so what are the marketing strategies, or what marketing strategies can be used to attract a would-be investor into the Sukuk market?
So when you actually show what the instruments are being raised for, you see green projects coming up here and there. You see, those are actually things that the internationals are actually looking at to see that the country is being compliant. So you are supporting green projects, and that's what's basically. There are some Sukuk bonds. There's the infrastructure bond that was just raised recently. These are actually projects that people are looking out for, and the foreign investors are looking to invest in Sharia compliant instruments. So it's actually, we have a lot of calls. We have people who are looking to invest in these bonds, and we're just waiting for it to be rolled out in the market. So the investor appetite is very strong on that front.
Okay, Akpera, thank you so much. And of course, we hope that because Nigeria's debt instruments, when you talk about FGM savings bond, the FGM bond, the Euro bond, the most recent domestic dollar bond, all this debt instrument from Nigeria is always oversubscribed, and Sukuk is no exception. So we look out for that expectation made by you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
That was Akpenwe Okputu, Chief Dealer at Lotus Bank, giving us details about the Sukuk bond investment and then, of course, what is being used for and how they can attract investors. Okay, now let's talk about the Middle East market. Well, we see the Middle East market being slightly in mixed territory, not too different from what we had in the previous session there. 0.17% intraday negative movement for the Dubai index, 4,839.25, while the Abu Dhabi index in the green, 0.37% at 9,268.84 for that market. For the other two markets within the Middle East, we see it's Saudi Arabia, 0.25%, a quarter of a percent in the green, while the Qatari Stock Exchange in the red, 0.16% for the intraday market movements. And let's talk about the U.S. market. Stock futures is climbing for Tuesday, for the Wednesday's morning session, and this is coming after we saw a record high close from the S&P 024. Another record was set there. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, it was a little bit in the red, but for the stock futures for Wednesday morning, 0.44% in the green, and the Nasdaq index 0.55%. The three averages are actually poised for more growth. This is December, so the month of December is always a pretty good month for many of these stocks. Is the season of gifting, and it's the holiday season, so many people have to buy things, and at the same time, the GDP growth would also reflect on the averages that you see here across the market. But turning to what to expect for Wednesday, the market is expecting that there will be a review of what they call the ADP private payrolls report for November, which is expected to show a growth of about 163,000 positions, as well as the S&P, that's the PMI for the U.S. Factory orders and durable goods, which is also expected to be released today. Well, and finally, we'll also have Jerome Powell, that's the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, who will be speaking in New York in a moderated discussion in Wednesday afternoon. That's for U.S. time. So that's what to expect for the markets on the U.S. On Wall Street. And finally, for the Asian market, we see Asian markets is actually a mixed picture there. We see the Nikkei bouncing into the 39,000 points, which it had lost some few months ago. And then South Korea has been in the news for not too good reason. We see the political turmoil there, where at some point we saw the pressure is mounting on President Yoon Suk Yeol to step down after imposing and then lifting a martial decree within hours. We see that impact had affected both the country's currency as well as the market index there, which is the Kospi, which was down by 1.29%. For the Hang Seng Index, 0.02%. And for the other two markets within the Asian region, we also see a mixed picture closing there, all in the red for the Shanghai Index and India's Nifty 50 down 0.04% and 0.42% for the Shanghai Composite Index. So, Ladi, that's it for the markets.
Definitely, political turmoil will make investors a little jittery, and we're seeing that play out in those Asian markets. Well, thank you so much, Native, for giving me the details there.